Alright, hi everyone, how's it going? And welcome to another video. Now, recently I've been doing some videos pertaining to bands that are not really all that well known. And the reason why I've been doing this is I've been trying to shine some light on these forgotten bands. You know, some of these bands are really quite good, and yet for whatever reason, these bands just didn't really become all that famous. So I've been trying to draw some attention to these bands the best I can. Recently in Chicago, I went to see a band that's been around for a while. They've been around since 1969. They really put on a good show. They're definitely a heavy band, but like I said, they go back pretty far, and I definitely wanted to, give this band some attention because they really are pretty obscure. And that would be the band Bang. Now this right here is their self-titled album, also called Bang. And I want to do an album review on this album, but I also want to talk a bit about this band and their history. Now, Bang formed, like I said, in '69. They formed right after Woodstock. They formed by two friends. One was a singer, bass player. The other was a guitarist. They then got together with a drummer who was, I believe, a bit older than they were. And they rehearsed in the drummer's basement of a store that he owned. And after about a year and a half, they began to get tighter and really refine their sound. They were working on an album called Death of a Country. Now this album was very progressive sounding, not really very radio friendly or commercial sounding at all. The songs were long, but just so happened that around this time, and this was about '71, the band went to a record store, and they're talking with a guy who worked there, and that guy suggested the band drive down from Philadelphia to Orlando, Florida, where the Deep Purple Rod Stewart concert was going to be held. And he just said, they should try to open for Deep Purple and Rod Stewart. Now at this point, Deep Purple had recently come out with Machine Head, and they were really becoming quite famous at this point. And the band got a U-Haul together, just kind of on a whim, drove down to Orlando, Florida. They met with the concert promoter. They tried to convince him to let him on. The concert promoter wanted to hear a couple songs, because, why wouldn't he? He wanted to hear what they sounded like. They played a couple songs for him. He liked it, and he allowed the band Bang to open for Deep Purple and Rod Stewart. They played about 5 or 6 songs. Then after this led to another concert where they opened for Steppenwolf, and then shortly after that, they opened for the Guess Who. And they began to play more shows, and eventually they opened for Black Sabbath. Now, record company people were observing the band, and very quickly Bang was offered a record deal by Capitol Records, which is pretty incredible. They got signed to Capitol Records pretty much right out of the gate. And Capitol Records, like I said, was a major record deal. They got I think it was like either a 3 or 4 album deal. In those days, bands would typically get about 3 albums, and they would put out 2 albums a year. That was just the way they did it in the early '70s. They would put out like 2 albums a year. They had a 3-album deal. Record companies did that because they wanted to try to develop the artist as much as they could. So Bang got one of these deals, and they then recorded their album Death of a Country. And like I said, this album wasn't really very commercial. It was a concept album. The record company did not want to release a concept album for a band's debut. So as a result of this, they told them, you got to come up with some more material. So they shelved Death of a Country. They actually wouldn't release it until 2004. So they shelved that album, and very quickly they got to work on this album right here. Bang. And, you know, this is a good album, and this definitely is a forgotten gem of early 70s metal. I mean, if you like that Sabbath sound, you would definitely like this. But there's other influences on this album as well. You can hear a Zeppelin influence. You could also hear a Grand Funk Railroad influence. But it definitely is a forgotten gem of early 70s metal. You know, that's for sure. But some of the songs on here, you know, really quite good. One of the songs, Questions, was actually a minor hit. In fact, it actually made it to number 2 on the charts in Hong Kong. So they did have a minor hit on their debut album. So other songs like The Queen, which are quite good, really have a Sabbathy sound to it. Questions has that Sabbath sound. You also have another one on here called Lions of Christians, which is another good one. Just an all-around great album. You know, I do highly recommend it. The band then went to work on their next album, which was called Mother. It was actually like 2 parts to it. One was Mother, the other part was Bow to the King. And, you know, there's some memorable songs on that album as well. You know, some of them do have more of a funk sound to it. I know there's one that really stood out in my mind called Idealist Realist. But, yeah, more great stuff from this band. Then, after that, they recorded their third album, an album called Music. Now, at this point, they were working with an individual who was involved with the band The Raspberries in some way, and that individual kind of pushed Bang in more of that direction. So they sort of abandoned their like Sabbathy sound, their heavier sound, in favor of a lighter, more commercial sound. But I guess the fans didn't really care for it a whole lot, and at this point Bang was not really being supported by Capitol Records because the people who supported Bang at Capitol Records had gone on to get positions with other companies. So as a result of this, the new people who were working at Capitol didn't really support Bang a whole lot. They weren't really pushing the band hard, and Capitol Records ultimately ended up dropping Bang, and Bang disbanded in 1974. The band members just went their separate ways. You know, they had formed other bands. Then in the mid-90s, they came back together again. They recorded another album, and then around 2004, I know they recorded another album, and they also released Death of a Country because, like I said, the record company wouldn't release it at that time because they just didn't want to release a concept album for a band's debut. That was just not something record companies would do. So Bang released it in 2004. And then after this time, YouTube came around, and Bang began to gain a following because of YouTube. And now they're bigger than they've ever been because of YouTube. People have been discovering bands on YouTube and have become fans of them. You know, the best place to discover a lot of these forgotten bands from the late 60s and early 70s is YouTube. It's definitely a great place to check these bands out. And, you know, you can check out Bang on YouTube. But, yeah, really have some, you know, great material to discover. And a lot of people have been discovering Bang on YouTube. Another band that Bang toured with when they started touring again was a band called Pentagram. And they're kind of like Bang in that they had that early Sabbath sound, and yet at the same time they were really kind of forgotten. However, Bang got a major record deal right out of the gate. Pentagram did not. You know, Pentagram almost got a record deal, but it always seemed to fall apart. You know, Pentagram then got a record deal around 85. But yeah, Bang were different in that they got this major record deal right out the gate. and fortunately didn't work out that well for them, and they'd become very obscure. And they still are very obscure, but like I said, people are discovering them on, various things such as YouTube. That's how I first heard of the band. And, I was surprised to see an ad for one of their concerts. But when I saw the ad, I'm like, could that be the Bang from the early 70s? And sure enough, it was. I did not know they were still touring. But they have been touring. Now they're kind of labeled as being part of the stoner doom genre. But, they do predate that label. And when they were around initially in the early 70s, they didn't see themselves as that. They just thought of themselves as being a heavy rock band. But now they've gotten the label of being considered one of the founding fathers of stoner doom. So they've been, they don't dislike that label because they have been able to headline some major festivals as a result of that. I know they've headlined like big stoner doom festivals in Europe and whatnot, and if they're not the headlining band, they're either number 2 or number 3. So they, like I said, had that tour with Pentagram. But yeah, definitely a band worth checking out. Again, the band is Bang, and I did see them live, and I even got a chance to meet the band after the concert, and they were really cool guys, and that's why I wanted to do this video, because I just thought they were cool guys, and they are very underrated. The band should be bigger than they are, so wanted to do this video to kind of shine some light on the band. That's all I've got. If you watch this video, as always, I thank you for watching. Have a great night.